Welcome to the Cinefile Hissy Fit podcast, the tirade-filled movie debate podcast hosted by two film critics, two cool dads, and two struggling teachers. I'm Don Shanahan.
I'm Will Johnson.
We're new and we're damn glad to have you. We hope you've got your judge's scorecard. Folks, this is all for tantrum's sake, where shared passions and high fives wash away any place for hate. In the end, we encourage you all to love what you love. But for now, the gloves are off and the Hissy Fit is on. This week, we're talking about Coming to America, the brand new sequel to the classic film Coming to America. Same title, different too. This one's been recommended by myself as the lover, and our format is this.
Jesus.
The recommending lover goes first. They get 5. It's already starting. Here it is. They get 5 uninterrupted minutes to shower their praise and state their high-minded case. The hater, you, follows with 5 uninterrupted minutes of their own to present their counterpoints with any manner of intellectual scorched earth or just caveman put-downs. After that, we open up for 15 minutes of shared conversation where the Hissy Fit really gets chippy. Folks, I'm Don. That's Will. It's Coming to America. Let's go. Will, how you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic. As we were talking about off air, I'm about ready to end my COVID hermitage. Is that a word?
Hermitage. I'll take it. I'll accept it.
And about to go back into the job market for real. I'm going to be teaching in a classroom for the first time. But my biggest concern is that is just exactly that biggest concern. I feel that I've gained approximately 735 pounds in the last year. So,
all right.
Going to be fitting into those pants. It's going to be fun.
Ooh, good luck. Good luck. I've been teaching in person all year. We've had little dips here, little dips there where we had some virus trouble to the point where like, you know what, let's close this up for a couple of weeks, but we've hung tight. We're in there and we're going to do fine. Our numbers are good enough where I think when we get to the fourth quarter of school, which is about a week and a half or so, report cards coming up, we're going to try to bring everybody back to school who, unless you have a super duper medical case where you shouldn't. So until then, it's Eddie Murphy. It's Coming to America. All right. I am the lover. I will go first. 5 interrupted minutes. Timer starts now. Shut the fuck up. Here we go. All right. So for Coming to America, it's, for me, all this boils down to it, and I got to take 5 minutes to kind of state all this out here, is it's likable characters. You know, back when the first movie came out, Prince Akeem Jaffer of Zamunda and Lisa McDowell of Queens, they had a kind of a their song that they ended up kind of smooching and falling in love to, and it was the song "To Be Loved" by Mr. Excitement Jackie Wilson. And there's like little lyrics that came to mind listening to the song. They kind of have a reprise of it here in the movie, and I made my review where I talk about like the lyrics from Wilson are like, "Some wish to be a king or a queen. Some wish for fortune and fame, but to be truly, truly, truly loved is more than all these things." And dumb hijinks aside, makeup tricks, zany antics, wild characters, all this movie wants to do is be loved and have likable, lovable characters. I've seen a zillion of these movies where you just have, you know, a himbo, a male chauvinist, not really figure out what he is. And from the first movie to the second movie, you still have the same Eddie Murphy who's just, I don't know, a good true blue lover who wants, you know, to marry for love, not for kingdom, not for title, not for this, not for that. And I admire that about the old movie. I admire that about this current one, to be able to spin that to another generation. And I was pleased with that, to have Murphy come back and play a romantic lead that kind of has like courtship principles and decency instead of the usual, you know, sassy mouth Lothario type that made him famous. Don't get me wrong. When Eddie Murphy's a dick and a jerk, he's awesome. He's the best. His cut down humor is right there with all the guys that are with him as his contemporaries. But yeah, I think of that line from the first movie of, you know, he says, I need a woman who can arouse my intellect as well as my loins. And as the brains of the operation here, I can dig and respect that. I can come to this movie and just understand that they're just trying to tell a silly love story. They're just trying to have fun, and they're just trying to have likable characters. And I'm digging that. Is it cheap and is it cheesy to bring all this back? Is it a whole bucket of nostalgia, popcorn? Absolutely. Totally there. But what I've seen from other places that try this nostalgia thing. It's if you all you did was come back and do the same gags and just have things show up just to show up, and you don't put any substance or a different kind of little wrinkle here, wrinkle there behind it, there's not enough to it to justify having a sequel. And this movie probably still shouldn't justify having its own sequel, but I was okay just hanging with these characters. Kind of to go back to our first kind of going to go back to our first episode we did on Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where we both kind of agreed just hanging in the car with the boys would be fantastic. I could sit in that barbershop all day and just watch those old men bust these two guys down, who are young princes from Zamunda. And it's in those characters that I want to hang out. I want to hang around with Semi and have him get me into trouble with Arsenio Hall. I want to hang around with Eddie Murphy and have all the rich, amazing things. I want my royal penis cleaned by a wonderful woman in a bathtub. All those things to me would be a fun world to kind of inhabit and be. Maybe it's fun because it's idealistic. Maybe it's fun just because it's silly and a fairy tale unto its own with Queens and New York mixed in. Is it loud? Is it dumb? Absolutely. Is it still true blue and romantic to a small degree? Yeah. Is it as good as the first one? Absolutely not. But for what this movie needed to be, which was enough nostalgia to have you smile, enough new things and new people to kind of pique your interest, and you get that with some interesting characters, and to still kind of have the gags and the fun, and to keep it lighthearted, was good enough for me. Could this movie have used its R-rated edge that the first one was, where we can yell "fuck you" off the Queen's, balconies? Absolutely. That's where a whole bunch of the original fun is. But for now, as a sequel and something you can kind of broach and approach to an older generation, because these guys are pushing 60. That's par for the course. That's as good as I can take it. And that's where this movie needs to be. It's just something you can watch for pure dumb fun. Something you can put on the couch and watch on a Friday night not so much with your family, but as a date night movie, just chilling. And if you have your beer just sitting there drinking it, that's good enough for me. Totally more highbrow things out there, totally smarter comedies there, but it looked good, it felt good, and it's nice to see Eddie Murphy smile and have a good time. I felt like this was still enough elevated material where it's not a regression back to the really shitty aughts that he had, where he just played dumb things for PG audiences. There's still enough sass, there's still enough fun. It may not be the same R-rated pulp that it normally is, but it ain't bad at all. That's my loving take on Coming to America. And when the timer goes off, and here we go, hit that bell. That's my 5, Will. Hate it in return.
That was unbearable.
I know.
Just a little,
all right, 5 to you, man.
All right, just a little background. So originally I was supposed to review this film on 25 Years Later. And I hated it so much that I refused to write a review on it. And Don came to the rescue and made 25 Years Later a pro Coming to America website, which I totally disagree with. And I actually thought about resigning my commission, turning in my badge and my gun, and giving in to the film criticism line of duty, because I couldn't believe that we actually wrote that on a website, especially with our third episode. He hated the film that I liked, which we'll get into next week. Now,
teaser.
Now, imagine, if you will, being so overconfident in yourself, so adamant that your place in the cultural zeitgeist is secure and beloved, that you would lavish millions upon millions of dollars on a product so behind its time and lacking creative energy, originality, or humor that you simply expect people to show up to view said product and not only praise it for merely existing, but hoping new generations will cherish your memory forever. Unfortunately, we don't have to imagine that, because the comedic hubris made flesh has been cast upon us like a malignant tumor in the form of Coming to America. Coming number 2 America, like Too Fast, Too Furious. A film so wretched and awful that even the blooper reel at the end of the movie is tired and just wants to go home. This is a monumental disaster for all involved, most specifically for taking all of Eddie Murphy's recent goodwill he generated from Dolomite Is My Name and his SNL hosting gig, I think, which he won an Emmy for, tossing it in the trash, which happens to be in a dumpster that's completely engulfed in flame. I can't put into words. Well, I guess I can because I'm doing it, but I can't put into words how savagely unfunny this film is, and what it lacks in humor. It makes up for in schmaltzy attempts at drama, and has enough cliches and tropes in its elementary plot to populate a landfill, which is likely where they found the script. How dare Amazon treat Wesley Snipes this way? He is the only one trying to animate this desecrated corpse of a film with any energy. Now, credit where credit is due. Ruth E. Carter, who did the costume design for many Spike Lee films and won the Oscar for Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. She does some of her most breathtaking costume design work ever in this film. I will give the film that. It has some of the most glorious costume design I've ever seen in a film. So if there's something that I can take away from this wretched experience, it is that Ruthie Carter knows how to do her job, even if it was for nothing. She deserves better than this. My eyeballs deserve better than this. We as a society, we live in a society, Joker, deserve better than this. This is awful. I almost turned it off. I can verify this.
I believe you already.
I have never, only a few times in my life have I ever turned a movie off. Okay. I've only fallen asleep in one movie. That was Shadowlands with Anthony Hopkins. I fell asleep. It was about C.S. Lewis, and it was boring as balls, and I fell asleep. I was a kid. Give me a break. And this one was close. This one, I literally hit pause, and it said there was 50 minutes left, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I can't believe there's 50 more minutes of this. And I actually took a piss and then got some food, and I think I probably I don't know, killed a homeless person out of frustration, and then I came back and finished it. Fine, it's over with, it's done. I finished the movie. So unlike Shadowlands and I finished this one against my better judgment. But it's not just that it's a classic film having a sequel to a classic film. It reminds me of the same hubris that went into Ocean's 12. Do you guys remember Ocean's 12?
I do.
Ocean's 12 was a movie so up its own ass and so satisfied with how beautiful it looked and how great Ocean's 11 was that, they just made something so vile and so this is such a fun in-joke, blah, blah, blah. And Ocean's 12 is awful. Now, granted, Ocean's 13, they made up for it. But I digress. My time is up.
Yep.
The film is awful. Don't watch it. Don's an idiot.
I hear you. I hear you. No, it is a huge farmer's market of low-hanging fruit, no doubt about it. But I admit I'm there laughing. Maybe some of that is the demographic and things that I don't mind having fun of. Leslie Jones is somebody I laugh at. I know she can grate and have a little too much going. I loved the in-jokes work for me because I was in on the joke the first time and I really enjoyed it in that kind of way. And yeah, I'll echo the same props you give. Ruthie Carter, fantastic costumes. I'll even spread that over to the production design. I got a name on that here in a little bit. The movie looks like $1 million in that kind of way, and that's impressive. Because you can kind of bring that whole thing to it. Yeah, production design is Jefferson Sage, who did A Simple Favor with that'd be the Anna Kendrick and Blake Lively movie and all that. You have Ruthie Carter doing costumes. And I'll even throw a little props here to the dance choreographer, Fatima Robinson, who did Dreams Girls, to, give those routines a little bit of pop, a little bit of professionalism, because, like you said, when Wesley Snipes shows up, a team of dancers announces his presence, and how cool can you be when you're that person? And you're right. Wesley's having fun trying to be Wesley, and you can tell this is a chance for him, who doesn't get a lot of opportunities anymore, to come in here and just kind of have a good time and just enjoy himself in a movie. The crazy thing for me, to your argument, is that this is the same director who did the Goodwill making of Dolomite Is My Name with Eddie Murphy.
I know, and I'm going to talk about
slumming together, Will.
I know. it,
Go
yeah,
talk. Yeah,
okay,
I'll pass
so
it to you here.
okay, so Dolomite is my name. There is a scene in that
Hmm.
film in which Eddie Murphy, I don't remember the character's name. I'm sorry. Uh, what?
I'm guessing it's Dolomite.
Well, no,
No, it's the actor who plays
Dolomite. The
Dolomite, right?
actor plays Dolomite. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Pay attention. So
yeah.
so they go into a theater and watch a Jack Lemmon comedy,
Okay.
and they watch the comedy, and they're not laughing because there's like a bunch of dons in the room who just laugh at anything,
Mm,
and
those guys. Yeah.
and they realize they need to make their own kind of movie. That's when they make their
Mm,
own kind of comedy, their own kind of action comedy for it. Now that was a very touching uh, scene about how Hollywood wasn't speaking for certain voices, like black voices and things like that, but also that this
sure.
idea of comedy has aged out. At that time, I'm
Hmm.
assuming when Dolomite was made, Jack Lemmon's my all-time favorite actor, so I'm not going to hate on Jack Lemmon, but yeah, we all
Excellent
we
pick.
all know when something has served its purpose and
Hmm.
no longer functions in a society. I mean, that's why we don't make films the way we used to make films, because some of those tropes and cliches and styles are no longer applicable. So
I'll grant that totally.
I found that ironic that that's in the scene in Dolomite Is My Name, when this film coming to America is trying so desperately hard to capture the energy and feel of a genre that has been changed fundamentally over the last 30 to 40 years, and thinks that just by simply existing, these characters existing because they had the goodwill of the first film, they had the
Hmm.
comedic genius of the first film, don't realize that that type of story uh, is old. It's no longer applicable in this society. And if
Right.
they had tried to address that in the film, which they kind of do in the most
Yeah,
cliche
they
way
make their
possible,
their one gentrification joke, and Queens looks a lot different than it used to, and
yeah.
royalty and the parallels to Wakanda that obviously exists in the world of pop culture now compared to then. No, I'm with you. I'll back you up there to say, yes, you cannot make an '80s R-rated comedy anymore. You can. It just, those things don't exist. The Hangover is the last one you're going to get, and
Mm-hmm.
so you're right. You're For them to reach back to think they can kind of capture the same kind of thing again in terms of the gags and the makeup and the silly characters who do show up just to kind of nod and wink at your camera, it's asking too much. And you can tell that they were sapped by that idea. We're like, guys, we can't go there the same way again, which is why this thing lands at PG-13. What sells it for me is what sold it for me on the first movie was behind the gags. I'll still say it again. Behind the gags, likable characters go a long way, and a good old fashioned romance goes a long way. And I still get that in this movie. I know, the guy who plays Lavelle Johnson, Jermaine Fowler, isn't the star of this movie whatsoever, and I know he doesn't get a super duper star treatment to kind of play the bastard son and all that. But I enjoyed his love angle with his helper. It's not as well developed as what Eddie's and Lisa's was, or I should say, Akeem and Lisa's was from the first movie, but it's admirable. It's there, and by the time you mix that with a few more fatherly level things, and you get Kiki Lane mixed in here, it works okay. It's Can it be done completely better? Of course. Can it be done raunchier? Of course. Can some really good, talented people here be given few more things to do? Oh, certainly, because you're right. Wesley Snipes can deserve to kind of break out a little bit more shell than just having a fun dance and a cool entrance. Kiki Lane is a fantastic actress from If Beale Street Could Talk, and she's kind of relegated, I should say, to to not the snooty daughter, but the serious daughter in a movie that's all comedy. So she doesn't get a chance to loosen up either.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, Eddie Murphy still gets to kind of wink, flash that smile, flash that charm, and I'm taken by it. It works for me in that kind of way. Like I said, it's not trying to win Best Picture of the Year. It's not trying to be a transcendental comedy. But you're right. You cannot make a comedy from the '80s today the same way, and there are parts of that you totally can force.
Yeah, and we live in a society now. We live in a society.
Oh, you're doing it
I know. I'm
again?
so sorry. I haven't even watched the Snyder Cut yet. I don't know why. I'm doing
I
this,
don't even remember if that line's in there. I keep forgetting if it is or not.
but
I was asleep by then because it's the epilogue in the last 15 minutes of the movie.
yeah. And for viewers out there, listeners out there, Don started watching that movie literally 38 hours ago and just finished. Anyways,
Just finished. Correct.
I forgot what I was going to say because I was just making such a great Justice League joke. No, but we live in a society now where we're struggling with nostalgia. My name on Instagram, if you ever want to follow me, and on Twitter is Nostalgia Bath, because I find nostalgia to be one of the most bittersweet things that you can have in this world, because it makes you feel a certain way, but it's also very unattainable. It's very hard to make nostalgia realistic.
I hear it. It's easy to sell, but hard to make realistic,
yes,
huh?
Yes.
Tell me more.
Now we live in a society now where
You
nostalgia
did it again?
is a
You did it
I
again?
know.
All right, keep going, keep going, keep going.
Where we live in this world of nostalgia constantly being sold to us, and only a very slim few have managed to use the nostalgia to say something new. Like we both write for
Give me an example.
Well, we both write for 25 Years Later, which
That's
originated
right.
as a Twin Peaks fan site. Twin Peaks season 3 was very anti-nostalgia. It was not made to capture the feeling of the original series, the original first 2 seasons, which are very emblematic of their time. Early 90s, soap opera kind of thing.
Sure.
It took your expectations, played with them, and also adapted to the real world, knowing that Twin Peaks is almost kind of like this realm of existence that's kind of trapped in the past, whereas the rest of the world has moved on. Blade Runner 2049, another film that I dub a masterpiece, which John doesn't agree with.
I don't.
It did the same.
It's very good.
Yes,
but I'm bored of tears in that one too.
Yeah, I know you're stupid, but so they take that film, and the genius of that film to me is that it was made in the 80s, and what they did is they said, let's pretend that since it was set in the future when it was made in the 80s, let's advance the story as if that time period, like, there's no smartphones. It's basically like the future if the future looked in 2049 had stayed like in 1982. And so I really like how they did that. And there was a natural progression to the flow of it. You could see there was change in the world, but they also addressed those changes in the world and didn't have all these flashbacks and callbacks to 80s stuff, 80s nostalgia, stuff like that. A lot of stuff is made these days simply for that fact, whether it's an original story like Stranger Things, which I think goes a little overboard on the nostalgia train. It's like, hey, look, it's the 80s. Hee hee. Point, point, wink, wink. Or you have these dreaded remakes that people have. Stuff like Charlie's Angels or whatever.
I tell you what, the angle I come at it from, and tell me if this plugs into where you're coming from, as a rubber ducky in your bath, is a lot of people get to this point of thinking that Hollywood is creatively bankrupt. That the best they can kind of do sometimes is regurgitating old ideas, whether it's remakes or whether it's just, Charlie's Angels. We've had 2 Charlie's Angels since a original TV show. I don't know if either one of them work, and they're going to try it again, and they're going to try this again. And is creative? Where does creative bankruptcy plug into your nostalgia woes?
Well, anyone who's read my stuff on 25 Years Later knows that I happen to be a lover of one of the most popular and corporate things in America right now, which is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is obviously taking old stories from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s and moving them forward. But one thing that I've made arguments about in prior articles is that it's just different now, the way we get stories, because we live in a medium now that's over 100 years old. And you have to remember that almost every movie that was made, at the beginning of cinema was based on a book or some other kind of
very much so,
some kind of other intellectual property.
Right.
So we're not doing anything different. The only thing that is changing is that the windows of eras is closing. Like before you might have had like a golden age of cinema. The problem is people are more attuned right now to what can you do for me now, and that's why you can
Right.
have a Charlie's Angels, 10 years after the last one,
Hmm.
because there 10 years ago is like the ancient past now to audiences.
Yeah. Let alone the 33 for Coming to America. I hear you.
Right. So that's kind of one of the issues I have, is that there's so much of Coming to America, the sequel, that
Hmm.
is literally just existing to remind you of what happened before. That it
That's true.
rubs me the wrong way. Like, I know you said you want to be in that barbershop,
I
but
do.
I do like that they apparently haven't aged in 33 years. They're still like 100 years old. And
Right.
that's kind of funny, but they don't say anything new. They're kind of making the same
No.
jokes. And
Yeah. Or they mildly clean themselves up because of the now,
right,
but it's not enough to be a legit change. I hear
right.
you.
And then, like, a lot of the cameos of like prior, like, this is what I talk about with hubris. Like, at the end of
Hmm.
the film, spoilers, they bring
Oh,
on
go
they
ahead.
bring on Sexual Chocolate to
That's
sing.
right.
Completely unnecessary.
I agree with
It's
that one.
literally just there for you to be like, oh, that was in the first
Yeah.
one.
Right,
Like,
right, right. Unlike when they have a storyline reason to bring in the priest, they have a storyline reason to hit the barbershop. Like
right,
that one, I fully admit that one. Throwing on sexual chocolate at the end is full tack on for the sake of party time in the credits.
right. And
Totally
I
with you
and
there.
I think that
I can't
thinking that
condone that
thinking that that character is so relevant
one.
is,
He's our mic dropper. Come
I
on.
know, but what I'm saying is that Coming to
Yeah,
America is there's different definitions of classic. I
I
don't
agree
even I
there.
don't even think it's I don't even
Like, who's this movie for? Like,
right.
who out there puts Coming to America, the 1988 one, on such a pedestal? We're like, hey, you know what would be great? Come and seeing those characters again. Like, I feel like that's true. Like, no one's gonna put that as one of Eddie Murphy's three best movies. It's good, it's fun, it's
Yeah,
great,
it's
but
great. It's, yeah,
maybe I'm that guy who puts it on a slightly higher pedestal than others, but
right.
I'm a very small crowd in that, where like you said, for the "What have you done for me lately" crowd, there's a whole bunch of people who don't know that movie whatsoever and are going to walk in and go, "Man, this is kind of lame." Well, then there's going to be some old person like me who's like, "Well, you should have seen the first one."
Right, right. And you know, like, for instance, immediately the thought of a new Beverly Hills Cop, for example,
Hmm.
fills me both with happiness and dread,
I agree,
because
because I feel like it's going to go here.
that is a character that stands the test of time. That's a great
Hmm.
classic character. The guy
Yeah,
from Sexual Chocolate and Hakeem and all them are funny, but they're not like classic characters. Whereas like Axel
yeah,
Foley is.
I agree with that.
So
I agree with
if
that.
you put in this kind of dedication and love to honoring a classic cinema character, I might be
Hmm.
more inclined to like it.
I've seen one line of logic now that we're getting to our kind of closing here a little bit. Like, a buddy of mine says, you know what? When it comes to like remakes and sequels, they should do at least more with remakes than sequels. But like, we should remake movies that failed because they need the help and they
Right.
need the switch to do something else, rather than don't remake things that are wonderful and amazing just because they were right the first time. And I'm with you with Beverly Hills Cop. Like, that's a character, that's a movie where even though it's 80s, you can put that movie in your DVD player, your Blu-ray player now, and you get a great cop movie. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's there with Die Hard, where that one, it is a time capsule of its era and one that still has its bite. Coming to America, you're right, because of the time, changing climates and things like that. It's not going to be as fun then, and when you soften it now, it's definitely going to be softened. Can I still have fun? Sure, but I hear what you're coming.
Yeah, you had fun. I did not.
It's totally okay.
But yeah, no. As we said in the beginning of the show, we want
Hmm.
you to love what you love,
That's right.
and it's totally fine to like Coming to America. Coming to America. I want to emphasize the two, so people know what we're talking about. But it's kind of like the Halloween movies, where like now there's a Halloween,
Hmm.
which is a direct sequel to Halloween
Oh
now,
no.
and it ignores Halloween 2 and Halloween and all these other Halloweens. So you've got to emphasize the Coming to America.
Hmm. This was a good hissy fit, man. We did all right.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I was a little grandiose, a little extravagant, but
And that's right where you need to be. Bring it. I love it.
nope. Yep. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, we want to call this one closed.
I won. Yes.
Well, like I said, maybe we'll get a poll and we'll vote here for a second.
Yes. Everybody, speaking of polls, follow us on Twitter at Cinefile Fits. You can find us on Facebook at Cinefile Hissy Fits Podcast. We are both, me and Don are both on Letterboxd. I use Letterboxd all the time. I'm constantly creating lists on there, posting my reviews. I have a great time with that site, so try to find us. I'm under Will Joe, Willjo. I believe Don is Don Shanahan.
I think I'm Casablanca Don, but either way, you'll find me.
Gotcha. I didn't do the research because I only think about myself. Also, find us both on Letterboxd. Oh, I already said that. Scripting. We've posted a poll matching this episode for you listeners to weigh in on who you think made the most compelling argument to win this Cinephile Hissy Fit. Thank you so much for your captive audience and social media participation. Cinephile Hissy Fits is a 25 years later media podcast brought to you by ruminationsradionetwork.com. Please visit, rate, review, and subscribe. If you enjoyed this show, we have more where that came from with interesting hosts and wonderful guests, all available on iTunes, Spotify, and anywhere you find your favorite shows.
Well, thanks, man, as always. See you on the next one.
All right.
We know you've been scared watching horror movies by yourself. Well, now you don't have to. Hang out with Ruminations of Red Rum, all things horror from movies to the latest spooky games we've played. Come hang out. But hurry, the killer's behind you!